Well, welcome to the Daily Agenda. It has been a very interesting week, I must say, and it became, I guess, even more interesting today after the Southport documentary last night on Channel 4, which I actually watched on on catch up, and also today Tommy Robinson's appearance on the Lotus Eaters. And which brought me to the subject of tonight's show anyway, which is the suitability of the centre-right to save Britain, which is what they claim they want to do. And so I guess we'll open with the comments last night. Well, it was aired last night. He didn't make those comments last night. He made them a few weeks ago, obviously, when he was interviewed by Channel 4. Carl Benjamin, Sargon of... forget the rest of it. I won't even give him the grace of that title. He doesn't deserve it, quite frankly. So he basically defined English ethnicity in this way. Well, well, you see, now anybody can be English. It all depends how they feel about themselves. You know, in essence, if they wrap themselves in the flag of St. George, another foreign import, and you know, and they speak English and they feel English, then they're English. Absolutely. Race, DNA has absolutely nothing to do with it. Ethnicity is irrelevant, apparently, in the world of Carl Benjamin. That's your typical centre-right. And so that's the starting point, and that's where it all falls down, isn't it, in terms of saving Britain, saving England. I want my country back. What country? You don't even know what the country is. They don't even know how to define ethnicity. It is definitely based along race and DNA. Okay? So tell me, if an African comes here and he wraps himself in a, well, like Wendell Daniels, wraps himself in a Union flag suit and speaks English and regards himself to be English, does that mean then that I can take an autosomal DNA test from Wendell and cross-match it to Anglo-Saxon burials 1500 years ago, like I can with mine? No, of course it doesn't, does it? Because he's African and he'll always be African. He's an African living in Britain with, you know, a British passport. He's not English. He's nominally English. He self-identifies as English, but he's not actually English as such, is he? Ethnically impossible for him to be English. And he could go to anywhere in Africa or even the Afro-Caribbean and find himself completely at home there, could he not? And I noticed how he manipulated the Southport drama, for want of a better description, into being all about him. Oh my gosh, I was horrified. I was absolutely shitting myself, says he, because I was going to be a target. Well, why would he have been a target? Why would he have been a target? I mean, it always has to be about them, doesn't it? Always has to be about them, never about us. And of course, when they're backed up by the likes of Tommy Robinson, you know, the Irish grifter with an Irish passport, who's so proud of his Fenian ancestors and their involvement in the Easter Uprising, just to reinforce the Irishness of it all, where Robinson is concerned. Stephen Lennon is his real name, isn't it? Yaxley Lennon? Yax, whatever they call the clan. Tommy 5 names, Tommy 10 names, whatever. So, when he's backed up by the likes of Tommy Robinson and Carl Benjamin, well, of course he thinks it's all about him, doesn't he? Because it's just one great big circus of narcissism, projecting narcissism. It's all about them. It's not about anyone else, it's always about them. And so, I didn't miss that opportunity at all. And Carl Benjamin, of course, was just entirely typical. And it's funny because this morning I had an exchange with his colleague, Bo Dade, on X, you know, formerly Twitter. For those who don't know what it is, and about Steve Laws. And he put up a post, and I said, oh, now you're supporting Steve Laws. Isn't this the man that you agreed with Carl Benjamin about in a podcast a few months ago, that he was a notorious online racist and the real far right in it, Brav Governor? Just to mock Paul Thorpe, because this is also the centre-right mindset, which is actually the centre-left mindset that we're talking about, ideologically fluid. That's a point I've made many times, and I'll make it again. So yes, on came me, Bo Dade, Now, Steve, put this fella right, will you? Says he. And I says to him, well, he won't be putting me right because he doesn't tell me anything anyway. Who is he? He's an e-celeb, quite frankly. Okay, that's what Steve Laws is, an e-celeb. And he did some good work in the English Channel, but ultimately he's an e-celeb. And he's a political prostitute. He's been through more political parties than a backstreet whore's had customers. And that's the whole problem with the Homeland Party as well, is that so many of their people are political prostitutes. They don't know where they stand, and they don't even know what they believe. And so then we go into Restore Britain, and you know, we can see there absolutely no intention to restore Britain at all. All we see is the Tory centre right. You see, and what they're really hankering over is the days of Margaret Thatcher, the coal snatcher, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. You know, the days when the parasitic few became even richer and the poor became much poorer. And the nation became deeply and bitterly divided, and it still is now to this day, entirely because of Thatcher, the coal snatcher. So there we go. So what is Rupert Lowe offering other than rehashed Thatcherism? Not an awful lot. What's Nigel Farage offering other than liberal Thatcherism? Not an awful lot. And in fact, if you look at Charlie Downs' most ludicrous statement on the Lotus Eaters, again, they just love the ludicrous statements on that show, quite frankly. And for all those who've asked, who funds the Lotus Eaters, I have no idea, but I'm perfectly sure it's not Moscow. But I could be wrong. Go and check it out for yourself. Go and check it out for yourself. Perhaps Carl Benjamin will just be magnanimous and openly admit who funds the Lotus Eaters and where all the money came from for that studio. But he might not. He might just lie about it like Tommy Robinson and the rest of the urban scam crowd do. Okay? So yes, Restore Britain. Well, Charlie Downs regards it as a victory, a success, no less, because they forced, in his words, Reform UK to adopt net negative immigration. It's an absolutely meaningless statement, and an absolutely puerile policy, because it's just replacement migration. One Brit leaves, one non-white immigrant comes in his place. So where's the success? But then, of course, you must remember these people don't care about ethnicity, do they, and race and DNA and real culture, because they believe an Amazonian Indian could come here and learn to speak English perfectly within 5 to 6 years, adopt the customs, wrap itself in a Union flag suit, and hey presto, there you've got your Englishman. No, don't mention the fact that the English, of course, were a Germanic tribe. Angles, Saxons and Utes from northwest Germany, southern Denmark and northwest Holland. Don't mention these these salient facts to them. They just can't cope with it at the Lotus Eaters, particularly Carl Benjamin. And of course people frequently make comments about his surname in particular, Benjamin. Well, yes, I mean, that's not Germanic, is it? It's not English. So why would anybody be surprised about that? But ultimately, going back to Bo Dade, who likes to sit there and snigger like a little schoolboy, as Carl Benjamin says, yeah, Steve Laws, the notorious online racist. Well, he is, isn't he? I mean, they're like children. Children, quite frankly. And that's all I'm seeing is a kindergarten of immaturity, quite frankly, because that's how they behave on the Lotus Eaters most of the time. And Tommy Robinson's addition to it today and his contribution was, well, all right, Governor, pretty much. I told you all of this was coming, didn't I, Governor? And we're going to have the biggest free speech rally ever, innit? Are you? Oh, my goodness, honestly. So Tommy Robinson told us all of this was coming 20 odd years after the British National Party predicted it was all coming. And of course, Enoch Powell predicted it was all coming, but it was all Tommy Robinson's doing, was it? My goodness. You know, he's a latter-day bandwagon jumper. Grifter par excellence. And we eagerly await the revelations of what really happened with the fundraising scam around Peter Lynch, and he had the audacity to mention his name as well on the Lotus Eaters, which I found very irksome. Yes, the sooner that comes into the public domain, the better. And for the record, I have heard the phone recordings of someone who used to support Tommy Robinson and then realised what a crook he is, speaking to the family of Peter Lynch, and they confirmed that they had not been offered any money by Urban Scam, and they therefore had not turned it down. And we eagerly await the publication of that evidence, because it will be shattering, and it will shatter all of the lies that have been spun. There's another reason why the centre-right are completely unfit and unsuitable to save Britain. And when we go into the context of Professor David Betts and everything that he's outlined and predicted about the low-level insurgency and the coming civil war, well, who's going to fight that in the centre-right? There's not one leader amongst them that knows how to fight a civil war. Rupert Lowe is utterly impotent. He's a landowning Tory. Nigel Farage is a gutless, weak, self-satisfied, self-obsessed liberal who will run like the clappers, most likely to Miami. Tommy will be in his cocaine den in Tenerife, no doubt, snorting it up, good and proper, with the rest of the grifters, whilst all the sad little muppets, so-called, are stuck here at home dealing with the consequences of what they have done. So tell me, who in the centre-right is going to save Britain? Well, maybe it'll be Lawrence Fox, who believes that Britain could become 95 peopled by 95% Africans, and as long as they wrap themselves in the Union flag suit like Wendell Daniels and speak a lingo and adopt some customs, well, then they're English and British, and the nation continues. Well, it doesn't, does it? It dies completely with the extinction of the DNA. Okay? So as I've said before in a previous video about Englishness, so on my mother's side, mtDNA, I can prove that I am directly related to the first Saxon queen of East Anglia, nicknamed Queenie by the archaeogeneticists. That's a proven scientific fact on my mother's line. Yes? I also have direct lineage to several other Anglo-Saxon graves across the country. And of course, in the context of Queenie, she came here in the very first migration wave and died approximately 470 Common Era in childbirth. Well, in actual fact, it wasn't even in childbirth. The boy was 7 months old. So, yes, a future king of East Anglia. And so I can prove all of that, with autosomal to cross-matching aDNA evidence. Now, what they're saying is that all of that is completely irrelevant. This stupid moron, Carl Benjamin, and his forever whining self-opinionated philosophy, which is completely illogical and irrational and never comes up with a solution to anything. And anyone who does come up with a solution gets attacked as an online racist, or the real far right in it, Gavin Brav. Sorry to take the piss, but I love it. And I'm going to carry on taking the piss. And on that point, I must admit that this week the secretary of the British Democrats piped up saying, I don't like the criticism that you're making of the British Democrats. I don't agree with it. Well, tough. I'll carry on making it. Yeah, it's called freedom of expression. If you don't like it, sod off. It's as simple as that, isn't it? You don't need a free speech festival in London to grift stacks of money off muppets to be able to say something of that nature, because that is a perfect example of freedom of expression. That's why I was nominated for 3 free speech awards in 2015, and no one on the centre-right has ever been nominated for a free speech award. And why would they be? Because no one on the centre-right has got enough bollocks, quite frankly, to get a nomination for a free speech award, because it takes bravery above and beyond anything they can ever muster. And this is the whole point about this nonsense talk they continue to spout about a civil war. Well, who's going to fight in it? Because no one in the centre-right is capable of leading the nativists. And that was a very interesting point that they made on the Southport documentary about Tommy Robinson leading the nativists. Well, he's not a nativist for a start, he's Irish, and he's not leading nativists, and they don't believe in nativism. He's leading a centre-left flag group, quite frankly, which isn't even an organisation. And he's joined both Restore Britain and Advance UK. So Ben Habib, who's half Pakistani, he's going to save England, is he? Because he has a better concept of Englishness than the English themselves, perhaps. Yeah? Or maybe, you know, Nick the Greek, Nick Tenconi. I mean, we're still unsure whether he's Italian or Greek, but anyway, Nick the Greek suits him perfectly. Absolutely gutless, chinless wonder, who does a runner whenever he's told to go home, like what happened in France. We've all seen that video, ha ha ha, very amusing, you know. But then he's not English, is he? So at the end of the day, it's not a slur and an affront on the English. So there you go. But Nick Tenconi believes he can dictate to people what Englishness means. Well, he's not English, is he? He was born in England, but he's not English. That is the whole point. And how much longer does it take to sink in, quite frankly? And so I believe what we actually need at some point in the future, under a Nationality and Remigration Act, is a very specific determination of what constitutes citizenship and, of course, associate citizenship. Now, some people could be allowed to remain under associate citizenship like the Romans had. Remember? You know, these people love harking back to Rome, don't they? And also classical Greece. And we can remember the whole structure of classical Grecian society. They didn't just give citizenship to anyone, did they? Particularly in Sparta. So maybe we should have something like that, whereby a British or English citizen is granted that privilege based on DNA and heritage alone, i.e. being able to connect to their ancestors in the ground. Yes, that's right, in the ground, all over the country and all over Europe as well, on both sides. And if they can't do that, then obviously they're given associate citizenship. Do you get the point I'm making? And the point that I'm making is actually quite simple. Carl Benjamin is a clown, and he talks absolute nonsense. And the centre-right most definitely cannot and will not save Britain, because it has absolutely no concept of what Britishness is, because it's too cowardly collectively to actually define what Britishness is. I've just defined it for you. It's actually very simple. We don't need their little friend Thomas Rousel, who dresses up like a Smurf either, to come along and back them up with some claptrap, which is what he's want to do. He tried it on with me, in actual fact, last year on X, and soon gave him the heave-o and the boot. And that's fine, because I can't stand anyone in the centre-right. Because they're all the same. They're all con artists, they're all fakes, they're all liars, and they're all craven. Because none of them can actually define English ethnicity, or Scottish, or Irish, or Welsh. But I can do it very easily, and I've just done it. So what I advocate is, as I said, that our citizenship should be determined on our heritage. And of course we can grant people associate citizenship, but they will never have full citizenship. And don't you think that's right and proper? I can hear the horrors, the screams of racism, the notorious online racist coming out of the Lotus Eaters studio. Paid for by who exactly? Does it smell of Zionism? Maybe? Well, why don't Carl Benjamin just tell us who funded his studio and his entire operation? That just makes the matter very simple, doesn't it? But irrespective of that, I know what Englishness is, and I know what Britishness is, and I know what Scottishness is, and Welshness and Irishness, and I can define all of those things, including all of the European nations and tribes as well. I don't have a problem with it, because I'm not a gutless centre-right coward. So anyone who thinks Britain, and the English in particular, because that's what it centres around with most of these people, are going to survive under the centre-right, you're living in a dream world. You'll simply be bred out of existence within 60 to 70, possibly 80 years, because they can't define Englishness. They can't define Britishness, Scottishness, Welshness, Irish, because they're prepared to give it to anyone who turns up wearing a Union flag suit and speak a lingo. Huh, peeps? I don't. I want our British identity to be based entirely on our heritage. And I ask you to join me. Come over to Remigration Action and join me. There's no point wasting your time on the centre-right, because you're going nowhere with them other than bitter disappointment and failure. guaranteed. Particularly if it comes to the Professor Bet scenario, because that lot will be absolutely hammered in the first few weeks. I guarantee you it will happen. So, you know, perhaps you should stop speaking about civil war a lot less and start concentrating on some other pragmatic, achievable realities, like handing British citizenship to just about anyone.